Welcome to CEO's Library, the 1% bookshelf, where we dive into the most impactful books shaping industries and driving innovation. Today we're exploring a memoir that pulls back the curtain on one of television's biggest stars and his harrowing battle with addiction. Matthew Perry had it all: fame, fortune, adoring fans. His wit and charm as Chandler Bing on the show Friends made him a household name and earned him millions. But behind the scenes, Perry was fighting a deadly addiction that nearly cost him everything. In his raw and revealing memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, Perry takes us on his journey from sitcom superstardom to the brink of death and back again. Before we dive in, let me give you some context on Matthew Perry, for those who might not be as familiar. Perry shot to fame in the mid-90s as one of the stars of the hit sitcom Friends, playing the sarcastic and lovable Chandler Bing for 10 seasons. The show was a cultural phenomenon, making Perry and his co-stars some of the highest-paid actors on television. But while his career was soaring, Perry was secretly battling a crippling addiction to alcohol and opioids. In his book, he reveals that he's been to rehab 15 times and estimates he's spent over $7 million trying to get sober. His addiction nearly killed him in 2018 when his colon burst due to opioid abuse, leaving him in a coma for 2 weeks with a 2% chance of survival. Perry's story is one of incredible highs and devastating lows. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of addiction, but also a testament to the power of perseverance and the possibility of redemption. So let's dive into Perry's remarkable journey, starting with his rise to fame. Matthew Perry's path to stardom began in his teens when he moved from Ottawa, Canada to Los Angeles to pursue acting. He had some early success with guest roles and short-lived sitcoms, but nothing could prepare him for the rocket ship to fame that was Friends. In the book, Perry recounts the day he got the call that would change his life forever. He had just finished filming a pilot for a show about baggage handlers in the future when his agent called about a new sitcom called Friends Like Us. Perry read the script and felt an immediate connection to the character of Chandler Bing. He writes, "When I read the script for Friends Like Us, it was as if someone had followed me around for a year, stealing my jokes, copying my mannerisms, photocopying my world-weary yet witty view of life. One character in particular stood out to me. It wasn't that I thought I could play Chandler, I was Chandler." The only problem? Perry was still attached to the futuristic baggage handler show. It wasn't until that show fell through that he was able to audition for Friends. And the rest, as they say, is history. Friends premiered in September 1994 and was an instant hit. Perry and his co-stars, Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, and David Schwimmer, became overnight sensations. The show's popularity grew with each season, eventually making the 6 leads some of the highest-paid actors on television, earning $1 million per episode in the final seasons. For Perry, the success of Friends was a dream come true. He was living the life he'd always imagined, adored by millions, invited to the hottest parties, dating beautiful women. But beneath the surface, Perry was struggling. He writes about the immense pressure he felt to be funny, both on and off screen. "I felt like I was going to die if the live audience didn't laugh. And it's not healthy for sure. But I would sometimes say a line, and they wouldn't laugh, and I would sweat and just, go into convulsions. If I didn't get the laugh I was supposed to get, I would freak out." Such pressure, combined with his skyrocketing fame, fueled Perry's addiction. He had started drinking heavily in his late teens, but now he had the means to indulge his every whim, and indulge he did. Perry's drinking escalated quickly and soon he was adding pills to the mix. He became an expert at hiding his addiction from his co-stars and the Friends crew. In one particularly harrowing anecdote, Perry recalls nearly nodding off during a pivotal scene. One time, in a scene in the coffee house when I'm dressed in a suit, I fell asleep right there on the couch, and disaster was averted only when Matt LeBlanc nudged me awake right before my line. No one noticed, but I knew how close I'd come. As Friends continued its massive success through the late 90s and early 2000s, Perry's addiction worsened. He was taking up to 55 Vicodin a day at his lowest point, washing them down with quarts of vodka. His weight fluctuated dramatically. He lost 50 pounds at one point, leading to rampant speculation in the tabloids. Now let's talk about the depths of Perry's addiction and the toll it took on his life and career. Despite the outward appearance of success, Perry was spiraling. He writes candidly about his rock-bottom moments, including a terrifying incident during the filming of the movie Serving Sarah in 2001. Perry was so intoxicated during filming that he couldn't remember his lines or even stand up straight. The production had to shut down for 2 months while Perry went to rehab. He ended up having to re-record all of his dialogue in post-production because he had been slurring his words so badly. But perhaps the most shocking and life-threatening incident came in 2018 when Perry's decades of substance abuse caught up with him in a devastating way. His colon burst due to opioid overuse, landing him in the hospital fighting for his life. Perry writes, "I was put on an ECMO machine, which does all the breathing for your heart and your lungs, and that's called a Hail Mary. No one survives that." Perry was in a coma for 2 weeks. The doctors told his family he had a 2% chance of survival. When he finally woke up, he was attached to a colostomy bag and had to learn to walk again. It was a wake-up call like no other. The toll of Perry's addiction went beyond his physical health. It affected his relationships, both personal and professional. He writes poignantly about how his addiction made it impossible for him to fully commit to romantic relationships. "I've been in love a lot. I liked everybody I ever dated. The problem is, I was high the entire time, so there was no real connection there." His addiction also impacted his career. While Friends was still going strong, Perry struggled to capitalize on his fame with successful film roles. He attributes this partly to his inability to be fully present and committed due to his substance abuse. Perry's attempts at getting sober were numerous and often short-lived. He estimates he's been to rehab 15 times and spent over $7 million on attempts to get clean. Each time, he would make progress, only to relapse again. He describes the cycle of addiction with brutal honesty. "You can't have a drug problem for 30 years and then expect to have it solved in 28 days. Getting sober is a really hard thing to do." But Perry's story isn't just one of addiction and despair. It's also a story of resilience, hope, and ultimately recovery. After his near-death experience in 2018, Perry committed himself to sobriety with a new determination. He had a spiritual awakening of sorts, which he describes in the book. "I realized that my life has meaning and I don't want to die. My life means something." This realization became the foundation for Perry's ongoing recovery. He began to see his struggle with addiction not just as a personal battle, but as an opportunity to help others. He writes, "There's a reason I'm still here, and figuring out why is the task that has been put in front of me." Perry has become an advocate for addiction recovery, using his platform to raise awareness and reduce stigma. He's spoken openly about his experiences in interviews and on social media, encouraging others who are struggling to seek help. One of the most powerful aspects of Perry's recovery journey is his gratitude. Despite all the pain and struggle he's been through, he expresses profound thankfulness for his second chance at life. He writes, I'm an extremely grateful guy. I'm grateful for a lot of things. I'm grateful for friends, the show I was on for so long. I'm grateful that I got a second chance in my career. I'm grateful that I'm alive. Perry's recovery has also allowed him to mend relationships and forge deeper connections. He writes about reconnecting with his friends' co-stars and the support they've shown him throughout his journey. He's also developed a new appreciation for the simple joys in life, free from the haze of addiction. As we wrap up our discussion of Matthew Perry's memoir, there are several key lessons we can take away from his story. First, addiction is a disease, not a moral failing. Perry's struggle shows how even someone with all the success and resources in the world can fall prey to addiction. It's a reminder that we need to approach addiction with compassion and understanding rather than judgment. Second, recovery is possible, but it's a lifelong journey. Perry's multiple attempts at getting sober illustrate that recovery isn't a one-and-done process. It requires ongoing commitment, support, and sometimes professional help. Third, it's never too late to turn your life around. Despite decades of addiction and multiple near-death experiences, Perry found the strength to change his life. His story is a powerful reminder that as long as we're alive, there's hope for a better future. Finally, Perry's journey underscores the importance of gratitude and giving back. By sharing his story and using his experience to help others, Perry has found new purpose and meaning in his life. Before we go, I want to encourage any listeners who might be struggling with addiction or know someone who is to seek help. There are resources available, and recovery is possible. Remember, you're not alone in this fight. If you want to dive deeper into Matthew Perry's story, you can find a link to purchase Friends, Lovers, and The Big Terrible Thing in our show notes. It's a raw, honest, and ultimately inspiring read that I highly recommend. That's all for this episode of CEO's Library, the 1% Bookshelf. This is CEO's Library reminding you that every book has a lesson, and every lesson can change a life. Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep growing.